Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We're excited to have you here for Teknovate Consulting Partners monthly webinar series, Teknovators Tech Talk. Today's session is powered by DocuWare, and we'll be walking through how travel expenses can be easily captured without the high cost. I'm Caitlin, the marketing associate here at Teknovate, and I'll be your host today. I'd like to introduce our speaker. Mike Coach Reno is our VP of Technology and a partner at Teknovate, bringing over 20 years of experience in the industry. Before we get started, I want to introduce Teknovate Consulting Partners. We are an IT consulting firm based in Northeast Florida who focus on helping businesses run smarter with the best technologies. We make IT simple, reliable, and aligned with your business goals. So with that, I'll pass it over to Coach Reno to take us through the game plan of simplifying expense management with DocuWare.
All right, Caitlin, thank you so much. Great introduction. And yes, Teknovate is always here to help you in the backside, and that's one of the tools we have in our tool bag is the DocuWare product. DocuWare is a document repository with workflow automation, forms capability, AI capturing tools that help eliminate a lot of the manual processes that employees have to endure day in and day out. It also helps speed up a lot of process automation, like we're going to talk today, in regards to expenses for your employees and when they have to turn in receipts or different types of expenses that are spent by different managers out in the field to do whatever project they need to complete, or if you're wining, dining different clients. So with DocuWare, it's really great tool to have in your pocket because it's a cloud-based system. That means that as long as you have internet connection, you can be at any beach around the world, you can be in any wooded area with a hotspot. As long as you can get connected, you can access your DocuWare system. Now, being anywhere around the world, it can be a little scary thinking that we have some sensitive information, but it securely stores your documents. And when I say securely, we're talking one of the highest level of compliance of SOC 2 Type 2 certification. So that way, it encompasses many different compliances like HIPAA, FERPA, GDPR, and Sarbanes-Oxley's and so forth, so that way the documents that are associated to those compliances are extremely secure from point A to point B, encrypted in that transmission as well. It automates processes like we're going to talk today, so that way you can speed up cash flow and bottom line, and also speed up a paperwork process as a secondary task for most employees in an accounting team. And then finally, it is accessible anywhere at any time. This thing is giving me some delays. I apologize. So travel expenses can slow down your business. When you have employees that wait to turn in receipts once a month, put them all on the accounting desk. Stuff can get missing. Some stuff can get lost. Employees don't necessarily keep everything in one spot. There's only that 2% that are that much organized that helps us maintain our business processes because they have their stuff together. No more manual spreadsheets. I know a lot of people like to use spreadsheets and attach the receipts back to it, right? But we don't need to do that anymore. We're going to be able to grab this data off of the receipts and all this other data we're going to capture. So that way, in most cases, we can dump this into your accounting program automatically. And that's also going to help you speed up any approvals you have. So if Caitlin is going out on a marketing trip and she submits her expenses, but it takes her 4 weeks, 5 weeks to get those reimbursed, is that helping your employee stay consistent by spending their own money and then getting reimbursed? Is it good enough to keep them happy? One of the things we want to do is make sure we don't have upset employees for taking too long to do reimbursements, right? But we also want to make sure Caitlin's not going to play the game and put in that DoubleTree hotel twice, right? We want to capture those and make sure she doesn't do that. Even if it is an accident by error, we're going to be able to capture that stuff, see that. So that way you have full transparency to your process. You have alerts for any kind of errors that happen, and this will help speed up your processes, because now the boss man, the leaderships, can now see all of this documentation. They can look at the game plan and say, all right, let's execute and get this done. It will help in all of those avenues, right? Because there's all these hidden costs that we talk about. When leadership has no insight, why is he or she going to approve something on the fly, right? Employees waiting weeks, maybe months to get reimbursed. You can't control expenses if you can't see them, right? So if you can't see them, how is finance going to report the data, which is going to end up in more wasted hours back to management, right? What if we have these non-compliant reimbursements? Maybe Caitlin wasn't allowed to turn in this receipt because it had a Coca-Cola on there that's not supposed to be on there. Whatever that may be, or alcohol. Maybe you don't reimburse for alcohol drinks or gifts in that respect. We want to find what those compliancies are so we can capture them quickly. So that way, if we're going to say no, we say no fast. Right. So looking at how it is today in most cases, paper receipts, spreadsheets, delays or errors, or I want to throw in there expensive employee spending capture tools. You can get these tools from some of your vendors like Sage or QuickBooks, but they cost you more money in the long run because they're going to be a double cost of what you're paying for the system, then implementation. Where that ROI with DocuWare comes in is, later in these series, you're going to see the before and after is not just within a travel expense, but paper receipts, paper documents, contracts, anything that you do in a spreadsheet, putting it in a central location, not just in a OneDrive, right? Being able to access it in the web through DocuWare and see it go. Being able to use mobile capture and put it directly into DocuWare in the workflow, putting workflows itself around different documents, not just travel expense, right? Invoices, contract renewals, sales processes, bringing in orders, HR. You're going to continue to see throughout this series how we can use DocuWare in many ways, and you don't need to buy different components when you have DocuWare Cloud. It's just paying for the setup. And that's something that's going to be huge when we get down into this. And then the final thing is also making sure you're in compliance, right? A lot of us don't realize that Microsoft doesn't give you full compliancy unless you spend a butt ton of money with them. Being an IT company, we see it all the time to where we have environments that need extra tools behind it to hit a certain level, but the budget is not there to get to that. So sometimes we work around that by implementing a DocuWare with its own system pre-built, so we hit a compliancy threshold and also meet any encryptions that we have to do. Talk to us. Nothing is out of the whim of how we can help you. Just talk to us, reach out to Caitlin or myself, and we'll get you in contact with the right person to figure out how this goes. Coach ain't going to let you be on an island. We're going to make sure you're taken care of. So finally, let's go ahead and jump into a quick demo. This is a real easy process. We're going to break out the X's and O's, show you the different players, how they set in the field, and hopefully I can execute well enough to show and throw that deep Hail Mary to show you for your business that we can score a touchdown, we can get an ROI, and I want you to come back in this series and look at the other stuff we can start doing, because then you'll realize, hey, I need to get this system into my company because I got to fix a few things, and DocuWare is going to be able to do that for us. So as I bring up DocuWare right here, you can see it is a web-based. We talked about encryption, so we can access this from any browser, right? With that said, we also have a few icons that helps us along our journey within this. Document Trace helps us capture documents from many sources out there that are electronic or from Outlook or mailboxes, right? Something that's to look into later. Search our cabinets. We can have as many different cabinets as we need to store files in. But there also is a thing called metadata we're going to talk about in a little bit, or index data, that actually comes into play. So we're not spending time searching, but we're spending time locating the document faster than it would be to either go to a manual cabinet or even go through a click feature of like a OneDrive from folder to folder to folder. With that, in conjunction with searches in our cabinet, we have something called lists. And right now, you're going to see this yellow 2, but in a minute, when we submit this document, you're going to see this jump up to a 3, and you're going to see this go to a 1, because lists are giving us search data on the fly to let us know about new statuses or different triggers that are happening about documents. So we want to know when a pending expense form is going to come in, and because I'm the one submitting it, I want to track what I have submitted into the company as well. Now, what's neat about this is you don't have to have an internal user to use DocuWare. This can be set for a public form, and only leadership can see the system and run the workflow. Right now, I am showing an internal user inside of DocuWare. It's just one way to do it. There's multiple ways to execute inside of here. We're not going to run any task in this workflow. We're going to use a different way to move documents around. I'm going to show you that as well. But task on that is that workflow tool where a decision has to be made, and that decision results in an action that makes something else happen. So that's where tasks are. I used to call it sneaker net, but it's getting up, walking around, taking that document physically to Caitlin's desk and saying write on it so I can physically take it to the next person's desk. We don't need to do all that anymore. We can do a lot of stuff electronically, and that's what tasks is going to allow us to do. But the first area we're going to play in is called forms. And with forms, it's going to allow me to open a link to something called travel expenses. Now, as I mentioned, this form can be public facing, which means I don't have to have a user inside of DocuWare to access this form. Anyone can pull up this form. It's not a security risk. It's encrypted, it's secured. Even if someone accidentally stumbles across this website, it's still locked. No one's getting in. Completely safe. But with this, we can do multiple things in our form, like a drop down to say, who is your manager? And so now we can choose in a drop down with multiple answers, who's our manager? We want to capture the start and the end dates for this expense we're submitting. So I'm going to go ahead and put something in for last week for my travels down to Miami, as it's going to be. You're also going to see this little asterisk as we go along. This little asterisk means that this is a required field. So by dropping this down, I have to make a choice. By leaving it blank, the form is not going to let me submit this until I give it an answer. Now, one cool thing here is in this currency is I have a drop-down list that I uploaded so you can choose what currency you're working in, right? So if you have a process where you're using multiple different currencies going across the planet, especially to Europe, right, euros or the pound, you know that GDPR is already in place. So if you share any data back and forth and you have a BAA installed with that, you're going to be good to go with GDPR. But now you can also track expenses from over there inside of that dollar amount. We're going to say in US currency here. Now, sometimes there's trick plays in football, right? And coach needs to call a trick play to get a certain result to happen on the field. And that's what's going to happen with these two radio buttons is I'm going to call me a trick play to happen. So when I say yes, boom, now I got some extra players that popped up on my chalkboard here, right? We got distance driven, allowance, and amount. Now all of these are tied together. So if I go ahead and put a value inside of distance driven, the allowance amount is going to multiply itself and give us a dollar amount to look at for that total payout. So 1,500 miles at 67 cents per mile, $1,000, $1,005 in your pocket, which half of that would go to gas today. But anyway, with that said, once we have that dollar amount captured, this is going to come and play to our total reimbursements you see down here being filled out. So we can do lots of calculations here. That's a simple one. A times B equals C, but we can get into equations. So if we've got to do division, we got to do different formulations, we really can. We can start building out stuff. So if this form needs to change, know that we can configure this form to match what you need it to do. This is just a baseline to get going and a baseline to show a quick idea. Now, that's just mileage and using a car. What about the rest of the expenses, the gas, the hotels, the food? That's where travel expenses down here becomes where we start inputting this information into. We just click on the first row and it's going to pop up with, oh, a date. And you're going to say that on the 11th, I went to Miami, Florida. And then the reason, more drop downs to choose from, multiple answers, but only one can stay. And this is going to be a marketing event. The same with the expense type. We can only choose one per row. So what are you trying to submit? We'll go ahead and do lodging. Now, this time around, Caitlin said, "Hey, Mike, you got a little bit of extra money in your budget." So she let me splurge. So I got a room for $99. No more $50 room nights. Thank you, Caitlin. Really appreciate it. So on that same night, though, Caitlin said, with my budget, hey, you can actually go out to eat too. So I'm like, whoa, I get to eat some dinner tonight. So let's go ahead and classify that dinner as well. So on our marketing event, my expense is going to be for meals, right? And because she let me go out, get a little bit more than usual, it was Golden Corral for $25. So we put our $25 Golden Corral in, and we're good to go. But as I tab through, you see a third line entered. I don't really need a third line. I'm just going to submit these two expenses. So what I do is highlight that third row. You see I get some other things. Maybe I need to reinsert something. Maybe I want to duplicate a line and only change something real quick. But in this case, I want to remove it so that way it's not trying to pull any other data into this. So, Caitlin let me spend $124 on myself. Splurge in Miami. If anyone knows in Miami, this is not getting you much as we're down there. But with that said, we made it work. But I still need to prove that I spent this money. And that's where attach receipts is going to come in. Now, what's really cool about this is now Coach says we don't need to have paper playbooks anymore. Well, now we're going to go electronic a little bit, right? So your cell phone, your tablet, you can either capture it on the fly and upload it into your galleries, your pictures, your Apple photos, whatever it is you're using. And all you have to do is go select it. It's going to take a second. My long snapper is slow sometimes. You just come in and select it and upload the documents that you want to bring in. Now, one thing I want to highlight here is you saw I chose two documents that were Word documents. So not only photos can we bring in, but in other processes, other forms, we can upload Word, Excel, PowerPoint, emails, up to about maybe 1,000 different types. So if there's a specific type of documentation you work with, let us know. You might be able to view this inside of DocuWare's native viewer like you saw me click on earlier. But if not, we can still store it and there's ways for you to open up inside of your program. Always a way to make a motion inside the play to change how the formation is set. Just ask. We can always make a change. All right, now that we got our playbook set here, you see the play execution is with receipts attached, total reimbursement costs fully calculated for multiple areas, start dates, end dates. All we have to do is submit the play and execute. Once we execute this play, the Hail Mary's running down. But now, what happens inside of our route running, our decision making at this point? Can we get around the defenders? That's where the approvals come in. Coming back to this list, you can see it lit up, right? Just like we talked about, big red numbers now. It has a pending expense form labeled as 1. When we open this up, this is the viewer that we're talking about. We can natively view many hundreds different types of document types. Right now, I know the most common, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and pictures, GIFs, PDFs, anything in that respect we can bring up. So now that we have this open, what do we do with it? It's sitting here, right? The receiver is ready to run. We know what the play is. We're ready to execute. We leave the huddle, but what do we do? And I talked earlier about a thing called stamps. Stamps is a very quick way to get something done within the system without building a long, expensive workflow. Not everything requires a full build out of a workflow. It takes hours sometimes to build workflows. But with a stamp, I can just quickly place information to say, hey, Peter King, I need you to approve this. And now Peter King is going to get an alert. I could log in and show you, but I want you to trust me on this. Peter King is going to get an alert that says, hey, you need to work this. And it says right here, assigned to Peter King, submitted by Mike Reno. The status is it's waiting for approval. So now Peter King can come in and take a look at the attachments to make sure everything is good to go, make sure we're going to run the right route. We know what's happening, and he's going to place his next decision of approved. And when he hits approved, I can build this to say, hey, this now needs to go to the travel expense team or a specific individual because it needs to get paid. So this accounting person or this team now goes in, does what they have to do, and they can place the final stamp of done and say we paid it today. Place that stamp. You're going to see it leaves pending expense forms. It's no longer in that work queue. That Hail Mary is down in the air. It's been caught. Touchdown, your team. But now we need to review the play. We had a flag, and it's reviewable. So we're going to say, all right, what happened on the play? How do we go back and look at these documents? If I'm not a user in the system, you're not going to see that. So let's take that off the board. You're not going to see it at all. But how does a leadership person go back and find documentation? And that's what we call here in our search is in our filing cabinets. We can define predefined searches for you so that way you're not spending time building out a search field. But if you do need to find something real quick, there's a great tool here in the review stage that's called filtering. With that filter process, it's going to tell you what's exactly in that cabinet. No guessing. Even if I have a drop-down list to choose from to say these are the only document types that are allowed to be stored in this cabinet, that filter is only going to show you what's in that cabinet. And right now it's travel expense forms. I can continue to narrow this down. If I go to my filter, the only status document in there is done. So when I click on done and do a search, there's 3 documents that show up. Now we can start digging in to find out what document we need. What is the one we're looking for? Is one of these fields an identifier for us? So maybe I want to go back to the form and capture first name and last name instead of user ID. I can even drag this all the way to the front to say, I want to see the order of who submitted this. So I'll bring this to the front. And now let's do a sort. Let's do a filter. Just like an Excel spreadsheet now, you can work this inside of here electronically. Even if you need to open it up again to take a look, here it is. Do you need to download this? Absolutely. You can print it. You can come over here and share it. You can download it directly and work on it. There's all kinds of different methodologies you're allowed to do with this within the document, within your toolbar here. This toolbar is going to mimic anything you do electronically and anything you do manually on paper electronically, even down to the little tidbit of drawing on the document itself or making an edit to the document inside of 365, inside of Word, inside of Excel, PowerPoint, etc. Lots of power to come with DocuWare when you get to these points and you move forward. You need to add other annotations like, hey, we need to put a text box in here that says audited on 5/22/27 in the future. Now we have another stamp saying we audited this, and now it's trackable for that in the future as well. Anything you do and put in a filing cabinet, we can mimic electronically here. So once everything's all together, now you have all of your research, you have all of your data, and on that back end, like we talked about, all of this index data here is being tracked. So now we can move this data. Say at this point we approved it, not paid it, change the workflow. It's approved for payment, but now we say once we have that status approved for payment, we dump it into QuickBooks. Now QuickBooks goes ahead and builds everything needed, and now your accounting team is just printing a check and not doing manual data entry. What do you think about that, Caitlin? Would you want to do 4 hours of data entry or 1 hour of verification and printing? What do you think would be better?
I think the 1 hour would be the way I would go.
I think so too. That's kind of what I thought would be the best route. All right, everyone. Why don't you come on over and meet me in the interview room? We're going to have a post-game interview about what we spoke about. Caitlin, go ahead and kick off the interview.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Coach Mike. You did a fantastic job. Myself and the viewers have a few questions. Is there a way to set spending limits or flag any unusual expenses with this process?
Absolutely. Today I showed a very simple thing, right? But this is very configurable to your playbook, your processes, your policies. Can we track spending and stop it? No, right? That's going to have to be on a credit card that you're using or tell them they can only spend X amount and we can reject it if it's over X amount. But can we stop spending? No. Can we look for duplicates? Absolutely. I'm going back to the example, Caitlin, she thought she uploaded 2 different hotel invoices, but it was the same one twice. Now that you tell me you need a process like that in place, we build a workflow and we do verifications. We can make that happen. In today's, not set up for that way, but we can absolutely.
Fantastic. And how does DocuWare reduce back and forth between employees and accounting teams with this process?
What it's going to do is eliminate all of that back and forth by manual spreadsheets. I've been in places watching one guy start taping 100 receipts to pieces of paper and scanning them in, and accounting is just looking at him like, is he crazy? He did it. He did it every month, once a month, because that's when he came in from the field. That's what he did. Now think about if we could just turn that around to a daily capture with his tablet or cell phone out in his work environment. Now he doesn't have to come in and do all of that stressed office work and take away time at the field or the project or whatever they're working on. So it also opens up other communications because we can send in alerts. Again, modification building workflow. I can send alerts to the end user by capturing their email address to say, hey, it's being reviewed. Hey, this is out for approval. Hey, this was approved. This was paid on this date. You know, go check your bank account, make sure everything's good. We can set up different ways to eliminate the physical phone call or the emails to where some of that is automated as well. We just got to have a conversation about what you need.
Fantastic. And how scalable is this solution for, say, growing organizations?
This is very scalable. We at some point you don't look at just travel expenses. You look at your different things that this system can do, and that's what we're going to continue in this series. Is talking about accounts payable automation, accounts receivable tracking, doing contracts, build out tracking and sending and getting electronic signatures on certain contracts review, sales orders. In the HR, I do hire to fire, retire, whatever that is for that employee. We do all of that. And you don't always need the most expensive system to do this stuff, right? This is really built for the small to medium guy that needs a little help, has high turnover just because of industry standards, may need contract review, got to do grants. This system helps you with all of your documentation and organization, and it gives you secure places instead of just open OneDrive, Dropboxes, and all of those other the Google resources and stuff like that. So very
Awesome.
scalable. Just need to know what your pain is or what your processes are, and we can tell you the best method.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Coach Reno, and thank you all for joining us today. We really appreciate your time and hope you enjoyed the demo and learned something of value. If you have any additional questions, feel free to reach out, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.